from Uncle look. You know, when you see that film, the TV series. So they mixed up these two looks, and when it came to England, the British kids, because you got to think that rationing had only just stopped, so clothing then was a real major thing because clothing was very based on your class. So like before then, people wore the clothing of their work. So a miner would be wearing a donkey jacket and a flat cap. You know, a bloke who worked in the city had a suit on and a bowler hat. And Britain was very much regimented, and you could be identified by your class and your job by the clothes you wore. Whereas when the youth culture started with the Teddy Boys, it was about rebelling against that. The Teddy Boys wore Edwardian suits and created the Teddy Boys. When the skinheads came along and the mods came along, they were taking what's now and they were going against the class system. The hippies went the other way. They were like the rich kids, but they were scruffying it down. The skinheads, who were the poor kids, were hamming it up. You know, they were buying the expensive shirts and the nice clothing, spending all their money on it, and created this youth culture. So that was what it was all about.
What about politics in general? Are skinheads meant to be foot soldiers for political agendas?
No, it's a simple fact of that. You know, when basically that all goes back to the National Front. The National Front in the 1976 to about 1978, they decided they wanted to cause a revolution. Basically, if you read the history of Lenin, of Stalin, of Hitler, what they do is they cause a revolution. They cause chaos. The idea is to have a revolution. When society breaks down, out of that comes a phoenix. It comes out of the flames, and from the phoenix, you get a new era. Right? Hitler came to power. You had the communists, the Bolsheviks, and the fascists were fighting each other. There was chaos in Germany. They'd been wiped out by the First World War. When the Wall Street crash happened in the 1930s, it created worldwide. The banks crashed. You know, there was mass unemployment. There was chaos. So Hitler got his golden hand and created the Nazi Party, and then created the Second World War. My grandfather was in Dunkirk the day the fuckers attacked and fought the Nazis from there and then on. You know, in Britain, the National Front were trying to use the chaos of the 1970s, because after the 1960s, when they gave away the empire by the 70s, there was chaos in England, mass unemployment, all the industries were closing down, there were strikes everywhere, there was all these political groups. You had the Socialist Workers' Party, you had the CND, you know, campaign against nuclear disarmament. We had the Berlin Wall up. We had the IRA and the UVF in Northern Ireland killing each other and bombing people. You had chaos, and the National Front were trying to use that. And what they were doing is they were recruiting the working class white kids on the estates. So they were, and the biggest youth culture at the time was the skinheads, and they were the most aggressive. So they were great foot soldiers because if you get one, you get them all sort of mentality. They were also going to football matches, so they were getting like, if you get into Chelsea, you get 50 Chelsea, you get 3,000 Chelsea. There's an army that you can then send out on the streets of London to cause chaos, and that was what it was all about. And the media jumped on that because it's baddies, isn't it? It's like cowboys and Indians. You know, you got the cowboys who are the good guys and the Indians are the bad guys. So let's pick on the Sioux Indians, you know, and we were the Sioux Indians of the time. And the thing was, by 1979, Margaret Thatcher came into power, who was sort of quite right-wing, and she just got rid of the whole Labour Party chaos of the 1970s, and in the same time got rid of the National Front. So by 1981, when the Southall riots happened, there was a skinhead gig with the Foreskins and stuff playing, there was a big riot, she banned the music, but by doing that, she pushed the skinheads underground. So by banning the skinheads, they banned all those bands. So we had the two-tone bands like Specials and Madness and all those bands that were playing, you know, music that was for everybody. They banned all that. So the only ones left were the ones that were being funded by the National Front, which was the far right. So they're funding these bands who are then, you know, all the disenfranchised kids that were into the skinheads were getting sucked into this little world, and it was tiny. I mean, Screwdriver never played for more than 500 people. When Madness reformed in 1992, they played in front of 40,000. So there's your numbers: 40,000 against 500. The 500 are the ones that the media want to write about. The 40,000 they want to be ignored. And I saw all this shit, you know. And so this whole political thing is the worst energy these skinheads have ever had, because it's a negative energy. It's not about getting people together and fighting for a cause which is a good cause, which in my point of view would be, you know, equal rights, you know, power for the working class, that type of stuff, which I suppose would be looked at quite left wing, but that's where my beliefs are. Today I would be more into campaigning against plastic pollution, you know, against animal abuse, you know, against the deforestation in Brazil. That's the things I'm interested in. You know, I've got friends from all around the world. Racism just does not exist in my world, and it never has. You know, and when we were kids, when the National Front were trying to make us join them, we looked at them for what they were, which was a bunch of paedophiles. You know, I remember them. We were 14-year-old kids, and there were blokes in their 50s saying, "Oh, come round my house, you know, come and sit on my knee, little Jimmy boy, and I'll show you what a tough guy you are." You know, we saw right through them at that age. We were streetwise. So where I was, it just didn't happen. And this whole fallacy that they've created, that the skinhead world is a racist world, is just absolute bullshit. You've got racists like in any walk of life. You talk to 50 bus drivers, you'll have a racist amongst them. You know, you speak to 20 doctors, you probably have them, and coppers, you'll have loads more. You know, that's just how life is. But skinheads has become labelled as a racist movement because the media want to know, that's all they want to write about. The reality is not that. It's a tiny, tiny element. And I think if you speak to the average skinhead, I would say probably somewhere in the region, 95% of skinheads nowadays would be the most opposite that you'll ever meet, because they've seen it, they've experienced it, and they've realised, and it makes them more angry. I think your average skinhead would probably get more angry about being called a racist than your average, you know, bus driver would, you know, or whatever. So no, there's no place for it, and it's ridiculous. And to call DACA skanks racist is just beyond belief. And I mean, it's these anonymous websites. I found out the guy that called me a racist the other week, and Clara. It's just some knob in Sweden with a little website calling himself Dodgy Oi, and he's a bloke called Anders or something like that. And he thinks he's some sort of anti-far. He's a fucking idiot. He's never met me in his life. He could come and meet me anytime. In fact, I wrote to the cunt and I said, "Look, you want to meet me? I'll come and have a cup of tea with you. I'll film it. You tell me what a racist I am. You tell me how many black friends you got, and I'll give you 500 to every one of yours." You know, it's fucking ridiculous. And, you know, I laugh at it because it's so pathetic, because I think of all the people in this fucking scene, there's not many more people that have got more history in it than I have, that I can prove from day when I manage Symond Pyramid, for fuck's sake. I manage DACA Skanks, you know, and they're trying to hit DACA because they think that's a weak link to me. Because they know they can't hit me, but they can hit a weak link. And Clara, being a 21-year-old young girl, is oh, there's a nice target. We'll try and separate that. We'll try and create a divide. No, it's bullshit. Don't want to hear about it.
You've done acting, photography, managed and promoted music. Which did you enjoy the most?
Well, I've always enjoyed everything I do, really. I've always been the sort of person that likes to do new. You know, I don't like doing, even a Skinhead reunion, I mean, it's on its 10th year now, and I never would have dreamt that'd be going on for 10 years, and I do sometimes think my life's in repeat mode, but I've always liked doing new things, and I like creativity. With photography, you know, my mate Gavin, his dad gave him a camera when he was 11, and, you know, we used to go out with his camera, and he'd get a black and white film, and we'd take these pictures, and at the time we were all skinheads, and Gavin had a really great eye for it. So we'd go out and we would take these photographs of all our friends, and then on a Sunday we would process them, and we'd see these amazing images coming to life of all our mates in black and white, and it was just the biggest buzz I've ever had, you know, and we absolutely loved it. And although I didn't really have a dad like Gavin did, I was part of it, because I'd be taking a lot of the pictures as well, and I'd be there doing the printing and the processing. And Gavin, God bless him, as he got older, he got those pictures onto you know, libraries, and got them posted and put in books and magazines and shit. And they've actually been a major part of keeping the skinhead subculture alive, which I don't mean that in an egotistical way, because we never took them for that in mind. We took them because we love taking them. But they have gone around the world, and they have, and also I think because they're genuine pictures, they're taken of kids by a kid who was part of it. It's real. So you see in Gavin's pictures, you'll see black kids, white kids, you know, you see all sorts. And we were friends. We weren't standing against the wall Zeke Heiling for the fucking Sun newspaper. We were just playing chess and, you know, smashing windows and stuff that we did as kids. You know, that's all those pictures are about. So that gave me the sort of flavour for photography, and I still love photography today. I think if you capture a moment in time on a picture, that moment's forever. And now I see, and I think a lot of the pictures we took as kids have become more and more valuable because they capture a time. You know, the cars in the background, the wallpaper, the stuff that's in those images, all the friends that are now no longer with us, they're all there in their youth, and that's amazing. So I love photography. Acting, I fell into really. I was doing building work, and I met a guy that was an agent, and he liked me. I was a bit of a fiery kid, and I was about 18 at the time, and he said, "Oh, you know, you should join this agency. They'd love you." So I went and joined this agency, and within my first job, I got paid as much for one day watching strippers get undressed in a Soho nightclub than I was getting for a week on a building site. So it's like, I'm 18 years old, I'm getting pints of beer, and I'm watching these beautiful girls take their clothes off, getting paid as much as a week running a hod around a building site. So I thought, that's for me, and I just got lucky. I mean, I did 20 years of it. I went everywhere. I mean, I earned well out of it. I met so many interesting people. Every day was a new day. It's always casting for new stuff, and at the time in the 80s it was a great time because there was so much drama being made, all the Channel 4 stuff, and you know, all your football hooligan films and crime watches and all that sort. I did loads of it, and it beat working any day of the week. It was fantastic, and I earned as much as probably in a year as my mates were earning on the building sites. You know, I never got successful out of it really. I mean, I've done a couple of things now like Doctor Who and bits and bobs that have gone down in, you know, I've got a few sort of fans around the world, and my autograph is sold on eBay constantly as a false one, you know, a moody email, a moody thing. There's some guy selling 2 a week of my fucking autograph, the 2 photographs, and he's been doing that for 10 years, and I've reported it loads of times. So I'm worth 25 quid a week, my autograph. So yeah, that's active, but I love it, and I would do it again if I got the opportunity. If I met people that were writing some good productions, and I'd love to do it again, but to actually go and join an agency and to try and work the way up the ladder again, no, I don't. It's just too much work. But again, with that, it ran its time, and so from there, I got offered work working at the big festivals, and I got offered work in production, doing backstage management and stuff, and it was a regular job, good money. Around the world I like being in, which is this exciting new world. Every festival's a new festival, every gig's a new gig. You know, the excitement and the buzz and the fun of working with a crew, I loved, you know. So for the next however many years, 5 or 10 years, I was living in fields and doing that. And from then they sold out to Live Nation, laid us all off, and I thought, do I want to start again with another company in another field? And so I jumped that off and started my own things, which is where we're at now with the Skinhead reunion, with the carrying up the Costa, and with Dakar Skanks, you know. So I always keep moving, I never stay still. If you stay still, you die. You know, you've got to always be looking at tomorrow.
My 16-year-old son is getting into subculture. As a parent and a skinhead myself, I want to make sure he's on the right track. Tell us about your sons, Archie and Jack. How is it raising kids in the subcultures, and tell us about their band?
Well, the thing is with my kids is both their mum and dad, both me and their mum were skinheads as when they were born. Their mum was from Essex and actually very aggressive, and I shan't say this, but if any of the two of us were racist, it was her. But she was just really angry and really opinionated. Now, me, through growing up through all that with my kids, my last thing I ever wanted my kids to do was to grow up with any form of hate in their heart. So as young children, I took them to India, I took them around the world, I introduced them to my entire life. I've always been completely open with my kids. They know everything about me, inside and out. And now as adults, they're vegans, they've got their own music, they write their own stuff. They're rebels, they're not skinheads, they're rebelling against me, they're writing their own stuff, which I really like. I don't want them to be the same as me. They've had a few bands. They were writing music when they were 12 years old with Mind of a Lion. And now they lost their bass player, and Jack, the older one, he's now stage managing and touring the world with, he did 50 Days with Erasure, then he jumped on and did 50 Cents. Now he's doing like country and some country tour, and he's also with another indie band that have got #1 in Holland. He's doing really well, earning really well, and seeing the world. Got a great girlfriend, lovely guy, perfect. I mean, I'm so proud of my kids. My younger one, he's stage managing one of the big venues in London. He's now with a band called Dits, who are like a sort of Stooges meets Placebo type of thing. They got like the guy who's singing. He's a I don't know what you would call it now, like a what do they call like a not transvestite. I think that's sort of not political anymore, but he's, you know, whatever. Yeah, so they're very liberal and very out there and doing their thing, so I'm very proud of them. And I think as a parent, bringing up kids, and I think as an old skinhead, when you've been through all the stuff and you've seen your mates die of drug addiction, you've seen friends do 25 years in jail, you've seen violence in a world that I don't want to ever put my kids into. So I think when my kids, I just put them in the right direction, gave them gentle persuasions, and I think being an old skinhead is a good start off point for a parent, because you've been through a lot of stuff, so you can see all the negativities, you can see all the perils that can come your way, and if you're a parent and you can admit all your weaknesses as well as your strengths, That's all you need to do with your kids, and they'll grow up well.
That's it.
Is that it? Thank you.
Well done.